I will share with you some thoughts about the development of the Chinese outbound market and about meaningful tourism as a way for Nepal and the Himalayan region to develop tourism in a sustainable way in the future. So very briefly, already I was introduced. So I've been working with China for more than 40 years. And in the pandemic, I had enough time, because for 3 years there was no China outbound tourism, to think about a more general way about the future of Chinese outbound tourism. And this is how we developed this meaningful tourism approach. So, by the way, you can see my family name is Arlt. George is my second first name, but never mind. So, and this is the topic I want to talk about. 4 points. First, a brief view, China outbound tourism today and maybe look in the future. Then looking at Nepal as a destination for Chinese visitors. And then something I call highway to heaven and highway to hell. I will tell you what that means. And finally, meaningful tourism as a tool for a sustainable future of Chinese and other international tourism to Nepal. So let's have a quick look. How has China outbound tourism developed? So you can see, maybe you have seen this kind of graph before. So China developed from very low beginnings. Like in 2001, we had maybe something like 10 million border crossings. And in 2019, we went up to 170 million border crossings, making China by far the biggest tourism source market in the world in terms of travels, but also in terms of spending. Then you can see 20, 21, 22, the 3 bad years, almost nobody has been traveling. And for 2023, our forecast is that we will reach about 100 million, so two-thirds of the previous level. And what is interesting to see is that the blue part, this is Greater China, Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan. But the red part, this is going further. And you can see that from about 2015, the growth was coming not anymore from more people going to Hong Kong, but from really people traveling further abroad, including, of course, Nepal. And I also put up the numbers for Nepal there, and you can see Nepal has been very successful. From 2015, you had about 67,000 arrivals. 2019, you had 170,000 arrivals. And in autumn 2019, I was happy to sign an agreement with the Nepal Tourism Board that in 2020, for the Visit Nepal 2020 year, we will help to organize a big conference. Alas, as we all know, that didn't come to pass. But May 2023, that's the latest number I could find, already we have almost 5,000 arrivals from China again, so which is about almost the same number than the whole last year. So tourism is recovering also to Nepal. Where have the people been traveling to in the last 10 years? Up to 2019, you can see that, of course, Asia, the neighboring countries, the region, this is where most people go. It's cheaper, it's easier, more convenient. So that means also for a neighbor like Nepal, there is a very high potential. And as you can see, until now, Nepal did not make it up to the top 15 list, but I think there's a chance for that in the future. So during the pandemic, we can see there were still about 8 million outbound trips in 2021 and 2022, but this was, if you see this number, and you will be surprised, I thought China was closed, and this is clearly from going to Macau. Macau, Special Administrative Region, was the only place where you could travel as a mainland Chinese without having to go into quarantine at arrival, and coming back also you didn't have to go into quarantine in China because they didn't have any COVID cases for a long, long time. So if you take out the Macau number, you see almost nothing happened. Where are we now? And you see the headline, we have been happily, fortunately, moving from a shortage of coffins. Nobody knows how many people died in China of COVID, a lot, to a shortage of wedding dresses. because for 3 years in China people got married, but they couldn't have a proper ceremony, a proper party. So in the last few months, it was almost impossible to get a wedding dress in China because there were so many weddings happening. And of course, it also means these people didn't have opportunity for the honeymoon trip. So you will have a lot of honeymoon couples traveling, and this is, of course, also an opportunity for us here. And we have been seeing that the recovery of the Chinese outbound market has not been as fast as many people thought, because there have been some hurdles. In the beginning, many Chinese people had to renew or get a new passport. This is more or less done now. In many countries, not in Nepal, you are in a good position. You have still to wait a long time for the visa. So if a Chinese person wants to go to Germany now, my hometown, my home country, it takes 3 months to get the visa still. And what we have just been talking about in the previous session, there is still a lack of air transport, especially of affordable air transport. I think that's also for Nepal the main hurdle, that there are not enough air connections reconnected, and we heard about all your wonderful new airports waiting for more aircraft to land. But these are problems which probably during the summer will go away, and we will see a big wave of Chinese outbound travelers. So if you read the media, you can see in percentages there has been a big recovery. So you can see Hong Kong in the first quarter of 2023 had an increase of 38,000%. I've been doing this kind of work for 40 years. Never in my life did I see an increase of 39,000%. But this is because this comes from a very, very, very low number in 2022. So if you compare this to the first quarter 2019, 14.5 million, then of course this 3.3 million becomes looks much smaller compared to 14.5. And I also put the numbers there for Nepal, and you can see Nepal in the first quarter also had 660% increase, hooray! But 6,000 compared to 46,000 in 2019 also shows you that there is still some way to go. And also, I will come back to this, in Thailand you can see, Thailand already in the middle of May said, hooray, we have 1 million arrivals back, but with this came the return of the $0 tour. And I will talk about this when I talk about the highway to hell. So, after the pandemic, we see China's economy is in some trouble. GDP will hopefully grow to 5%, probably less. You have a huge increase of youth unemployment. You have millions of Chinese students leaving the university, graduates. They can't find a proper job. This is a growing problem. And so we will never go back to the times when China had 10% or 8% GDP increase. But that doesn't mean that Chinese don't have money anymore for traveling. So maybe if you are selling Maserati sport cars in China, you have some trouble now. But to spend a few thousand euros on a trip abroad is still within reach. Another problem, of course, is, and it has been mentioned by the Prime Minister yesterday in his opening speech, is climate change. And climate change also for China is now reality. Last year there was the biggest ever heat wave in China, and this year already there is a big trouble. So you can see at the end of May, in one day, 578 cities said we had the highest ever temperature on the 31st of May in our city. And places like Yunnan, so the province bordering Laos and Vietnam, which always had temperate climate, they had more than 40 degrees shortly ago. And on a global scale, we all have been seeing the shocking news some weeks ago that this 1.50 Celsius increase is supposed now to happen in 4 years and not somewhere in the future. And we heard before about airlines, so that it's nice to hear. Sorry, I'm referring to you. It's nice to hear that by 2050 it should be zero, but this is way too late. Way too late. So 2027 we have 1.5 degrees. So we will have to do better than that. So the pandemic has accelerated the change in demand and the change of the expectations of Chinese outbound travelers, and we can see clearly less package tours and more individual travelers. So I think this is one of the tasks for the Nepali tourism industry, to stop thinking about package tours all the time and realize that more and more people will come as individual travelers or as small self-organized groups. People are looking for luxury, and luxury does not only mean very expensive, but it means also exclusive, something other people can't get. But then also a lot of things which are very positive for Nepal. People are more interested than before in adventure, outdoor activities, nature, and also in discovering new destinations. So there was a survey that the search on the Chinese search engines for visited places, on niche market activities, all grew up by 200%, 300%. So before, Chinese would follow where everybody goes. Eiffel Tower. Everybody has to go to Eiffel Tower. Now people say, I want to discover places where few other people have been going, which is a great opportunity for a place like Nepal. And also authentic experiences. So I think yesterday evening we had this wonderful culture shows here, but you could clearly see the difference that the first show was done in a format which is useful for tourism. So short, clear, and understandable. And then the last show was much more authentic. So the people, we didn't really understand what was going on, and it was very repetitive, but it was, the people enjoyed themselves obviously very much. And it was, we would say maybe too long, but it was, this is how it has to be. So they didn't make it shorter because we are in this place. So this authentic experience, this is what also in China more people are looking for. So we see clearly a split. You still have people who say, I want to do a cheap trip. I want to spend as little money as possible. But you have a growing group of people who say, okay, especially now for 3 years, I couldn't spend much money on traveling. I rather pay more for a better quality, for a better experience. So, and this is, of course, the segment to go for. So, I have been at a conference in China a few weeks ago, and so this is also in our new publication. We are citing Mr. Go from Tuna, one of the big OTAs, and he said 3 steps of Chinese outbound tourism, and we are now at the third level where people stop looking at destinations. So ashamed their friends will say, oh, you can't afford anything better. So this is a big danger, and this happened to many places where Cambodia is an example, Thailand is an example, Jamaica is an example, and so on. So, and you have also the danger, like in Bali, you had in 2019, 1 million Chinese people went to Bali, with the effect that many Australians and Europeans didn't go there anymore. So they were pushed out. So Bali was losing the high spenders and exchanged this with low spenders, which is not a good idea. So therefore, let's go to heaven. Let's take the highway to heaven instead. And that means concentration on qualitative growth and special interest offers. So, which means maybe slow growth or even no growth in number of arrivals, but offering people specific experiences. And I think we will hear in the afternoon about homestay, which is a very good idea. For instance, for many Chinese people have interest in rural life in the countryside, because almost all your customers come from cities with 10 million, 15 million, 20 million inhabitants. So this is for them a very new experience. And if you offer something unique, you can also ask for a higher price because you don't compete on price. This time in Nepal, my mind-boggling experience has been that thanks to the Pata Nepal chapter, I was staying in the Himalayan Front Hotel in Pokhara, and it was a full moon a few days ago, and I was sitting on the rooftop with a Gurkha beer in my hand, and the moon was shining onto the Annapurna, and the snow was reflecting the moonlight. So I could see the Annapurna in the moonlight. Wow. I sat there for 1 hour watching and talking to the mountain, and the mountain talked to me. There's no place on earth where you can have this experience. No need to sell it cheaply. So, and you have, I'm sure you have many other things I have not experienced yet. So get people here who are interested in the local culture, who are interested to learn how to dance these dances we saw yesterday, how to make momos, and many other things. And make them feel part of the destination. You have a very welcoming culture. So if people feel part of the community, they will start to pay attention to the environment. They will stop throwing trash around because they feel, I'm one of them. As long as you think, oh, I'm a visitor here once in my life, what do I care? That doesn't work. And also you will attract international investment for quality tourism, and you will have a bigger influence of the host community into what is happening and better jobs, and you will have a better brand image. So to go to Nepal will be something, wow, you have been to Nepal, so you're a traveler, not a tourist, you're a traveler. So that is what you can, and you will not push out the Europeans and the Americans and Australians who come already. So I think, yeah, there's a clear choice, and you are still at a point where you can still make the decision, you go this way or that way. Many places in Europe, for instance, in Spain, they're already destroyed. It's too late. You can't get it back. You still have this opportunity. So you have a good opportunity, but there's a danger. There's a danger you go this way, that will not be very good. So meaningful tourism is something we have been developing in the last 3 years, and very briefly, so this is a very simple idea. So we have identified 6 main stakeholders: the travelers, the host community, the staff working in the tourism industry, and we all see all over the world there's a shortage of staff because we have not been treating them well enough. The companies who have to earn money, the governments on different levels, they need to pay taxes and create jobs, and the environment, which means the future generations. Treat Chinese outbound tourists a new wave, and I'm very happy to say that today, as we are speaking, my colleagues in Cairo, Milano, Hamburg, Madrid, and Paris are publishing the first issue of a new publication which is called China Outbound Tourism Market Intelligence. So if you work with the Chinese market, I very much recommend this publication for you. With that, thank you very, very much for your attention, and I hope you have some questions for me. Thank you.